Welcome everyone to the Tom Coldview YouTube channel, where today we are debating SmackDown wrestler Big E. Now, the WWE has strongly suggested via the medium of Kofi Kingston that we're about to see Big E embark on a strong singles push, while Kofi is out of the picture for 6 weeks, leaving the New Day fractured in 3 ways. Now, today we have 2 new panelists and one who I sadly could not get rid of. Please welcome Andrew Thompson of Post Wrestling, Matty Paddock of the Daily Star, and Rick Ucchino of ESPN 1530. I'd like to start by asking Andrew, and then we'll go to Matty and Rick immediately afterwards. Is now the right time for a Big E push?
Firstly, thank you guys for, asking me to come on. I greatly appreciate it. And for as far as if it's now is the right time for, a Big E's singles push, I definitely think any time could be the right time for Big E to get this spotlight. I think Big E is honestly one of the most talented and charismatic individuals that WWE has on hand, and I feel like this opportunity that has presented itself now to where they feel like now is the time for him to have this opportunity as a singles competitor. I think is now is a better time than ever, honestly.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think as far as the internet is concerned and Big E's fan base and most WWE fans, the only which we'll get to, the only criticism could be that maybe it could even have come sooner. I don't think anyone really has a problem with Big E having the chance to shine again on an individual basis, which he obviously did to a degree early in his singles career, but they've just been so successful as a unit, haven't they? And I don't think anyone will object to seeing him put in a really high position now and hopefully getting some of that limelight.
Yeah, I know Andrew knows this phrase. I don't know if Matty and Tom do, but giddy as a schoolgirl was about what I felt like on Friday. When they did that, it's like I'm just internally screaming, oh my God, yes, it's finally happening. This is something that should have happened a long time ago, in my opinion, and I would have been stunned if anybody on this panel said, nah, you know what, I'm good without a Big E singles push, because of course it's time for a Big E singles push. When I look at him, I'll throw a baseball reference out here. You heard Edge say this on an episode of Raw a few weeks back. 5-tool player. When I think of somebody, and there's a lot more tools in professional wrestling than there is in baseball, so it's not really 5 tools. But I mean, when you think about everything you need to be a top star in the world of professional wrestling, the size, the athleticism, the speed, the strength, the charisma, the ability to be funny, the ability to speak, the ability to be serious when need be. Big E is one of maybe 2 guys I can think of off the top of my head that haven't won a world championship to this point, that have everything they need right now to be a world champion. All they need is the blessing from the guys backstage, and it's him and Montez Ford, in my opinion. Those are the 2 guys, and I'm ready to see what he can do on a solo run. He's not going to have Woods and Kofi flanking him. It's just going to be Big E. I wonder if they're going to give him Langston back. I think that would be interesting if he's on his own, he's Big E Langston, but if he's with the New Day, he's just Big E. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm absolutely ready for it. This is long overdue.
Matty, I want to come to you here and say, we've talked about is now the right time. Do you feel bad at all knowing that Big E's singles push could come without the benefit of a crowd?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, if you were to give me the opportunity to say any kind of detriment to the current run, it's kind of that Drew McIntyre syndrome, really. Everyone was delighted for Drew, and seeing him win the Royal Rumble in front of that fantastic crowd, and you felt the buzz of that, and everyone saw the images from Scotland, the live images in the pubs and things of how that and how that was greeted. There's going to be none of that for Big E, really, and that's a huge tragedy because he's such a popular performer, I'm sure both professionally with his colleagues as well as the fans all around the world. It's going to be a huge disappointment. We don't know yet, of course, what form the singles push is going to take and what title it might involve, but definitely it would be better off with live crowds. But I think if you offered any genuine wrestling fan and Big E fan the opportunity to have the push without a live crowd or not to have it at all, definitely you've got to give the guys due, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in kind of unprecedented times at this point. We don't know if or when crowds are going to come back or how things are going to look once everything gets back to air quotes around this normal. So yeah, it it sucks that there aren't going to be fans there for E, but I think the same thing can be said for, as Matty alluded, Drew McIntyre or Sasha Banks and Bayley, who have been doing tremendous work right now. And even though they are heels and they're the biggest heels in the company, I'm not so sure that they wouldn't be getting cheered by a live crowd right now, because everybody is genuinely enjoying the work that they're doing, even though they're doing heel work and they're doing it really, really well. It would be nice. It would be great to see Big E feed off of that energy that is the crowd. But I mean, he's so charismatic and so energetic. You know, I think he's going to do just fine without the crowd. But yeah, it would be nice if he had some fans there to soak in the love, so to speak.
Yeah, and to follow up on Rick's point, I definitely think it would be like just probably one of the best things ever if Big E was able to have a crowd to feed off of and have this, you know, this big run I think that he's about to embark upon on. And I feel like although he doesn't have the actual crowd there with him, I think the social media fanfare is going to be beyond great, to the point where it's going to be kind of like, I don't want to use the word undeniable, but I feel like it's going to be kind of to a point where like they're going to have to get behind Big E 100% with this thing, because the social media fanfare is just going to be like just tremendous. And the fact that, you hear so many stories from his colleagues about Big E just being such a nice guy and him being very charismatic backstage and everybody just being drawn to him as an individual, I think that's just going to further add to, what this run could be. And of course, Big E has everything that I think you need to as far as being a world champion. And then you have the other factor that I don't really think, I feel like Strowman's run so far hasn't been, I just think that Strowman's run has been like maybe a few years too late. And I don't think it's really lived up to what people may have thought it would be. So I feel like even if if this was in front of a crowd, I feel like the crowd would just be fiending for, somebody to step up to the plate. And then having it being somebody like Big E, I definitely think that fanfare would just be insane.
I do agree when you talk about the Braun Strowman championship run so far. It doesn't feel as impactful, for example, as Drew McIntyre's has. And that may come down to just a singular opponent really so far. Miz and Morrison have been feuding with him, but really it's all been about Bray Wyatt. Additionally, when it comes to a crowd, I'd have loved to see that Kofi Kingston Big E conversation backstage with the crowd actually watching it live and hearing them react, because I think they would have reacted in the same way as so many people did on social media and probably in their living rooms. I want to come to you now, Rick, and start with you. And I know you have a lot on this one. How high can Big E actually go, even if he only has 6 weeks to do it?
See, that's the question, and I don't know how to answer that, because it's like, okay, he has 6 weeks guaranteed. Now, if it's only 6 weeks, I don't know how to answer that question, because pretty much that gives him time for what, 3 or 4 SmackDowns ahead of SummerSlam, and then maybe a couple weeks after. Like, what kind of meaningful program, could that be? If I'm Big E and I just want to insert myself as a dominant singles competitor, well, then I'm just looking at, finding the biggest dog that I can and calling him out for a match, whether that be, God forbid, Goldberg, and he get his dream match and they can bump some meat or whatever for 5 minutes at SummerSlam, great. Or maybe they can find a way to call Brock Lesnar in here and have those two square up at SummerSlam. I'm not saying that that's in the cards whatsoever at this point, but maybe just setting up that big marquee opponent for Big E at SummerSlam, as big as you can. Maybe even somebody like Keith Lee. That would be fantastic. And really kind of just focus on that one big program. My hope is it isn't just for 6 weeks. I'm hoping that even when Kofi comes back, they can both just continue to do their thing and not just shove them back in the tag team title picture where they have been for the majority of the last 6 years, because E deserves better than that. He deserves to be in title programs. He deserves to be winning singles championships, and he should have been doing it for a long time. So I'm hoping this is longer than 6 weeks, and I'm hoping that he can enter a title picture really, really quickly. And if he does, the sky's the limit, because like I said earlier, this guy has all the tools to be a world champion.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there as well. I think we're looking at that 6 week time frame initially, aren't we, with regards to Kofi's injury or potential injury, but definitely some of this push has to be with some of the New Day in his corner, because I think the most endearing thing for many of us with regards to Kofi's push and that amazing moment at WrestleMania a couple of years ago was the fact that the New Day were in his corner every week. They were cheering him on, they were championing him, and the idea, again, as you mentioned earlier, guys, that Big E's going to have to go it alone, really, it kind of doesn't have as much of a romantic and that journey feel to it, really. So I would love it to kind of extend beyond that 6 weeks. And Rick, you bang on. I think so many people have immediately assumed that we're talking a title picture here, and probably the Universal title, that would seem the most obvious solution. But in truth, there are so many different ways now to put an individual star, on a major platform in WWE. Who knows what could be thinking? I hope it's a prominent championship, because, as you guys say, that's exactly what the guy deserves for his contribution over the years. I'd love to see him personally to take that Universal title. Really, you alluded maybe to Braun Strowman's reign not necessarily being what some might have thought for him, and I think if you're looking at potential fits to solve that problem, Big E for me slots in quite perfectly.
And seeing as how we do only have 6 weeks until SummerSlam, and assuming Big E's going to be in that main event title picture right there, I feel like the best way to go is to let him kind of steer the ship as far as what he presents, as far as what he wants people to know, and just to further put himself out there as an individual, and let people inside of who he is as an individual, outside of what we already know, and which is obviously talented in ring performer, very good on the mic, great person overall. And I feel like he could just take that even more if they just everybody has heard New Day speak openly about the just the rope that they have, as far as how much pull they have backstage, and as far as letting them speak on the microphone freely and not really, taking the reins away from them too much. And I feel like if that continues with Big E, and he can speak passionately about how much, he wants this opportunity, and how, it's kind of overdue for him, I feel like that would just do wonders. And, if this does go beyond SummerSlam, I feel like it could be like a cool kind of scenario thing if he were to get to SummerSlam, and then, maybe not winning but maybe not win it the first time, and then that social media fanfare just bumps up because people want to see it even more, and they keep clamoring for it, and then we get the big one when he finally wins it. And I feel like that'd be something that'd just be like just chef's kiss right there. That could be, whether he wins it at SummerSlam or whether that be later down the line, I think it's going to be a very big moment.
Love that you just described it as chef's kiss.
Tom, real quick, if I can just hop in, and the other thing we're kind of overlooking is, we're assuming it's going to be 6 weeks and maybe something happens by the end of the year. But man, what if this is something that they really do kind of slow play a little bit? And if this is going to be Big E's monster singles push, maybe he doesn't enter a title picture right away. Maybe he does. Maybe he goes, we're talking maybe a match with AJ Styles. But, what if we're looking down the road where it's somebody like Big E's the one who wins the Royal Rumble, and then Big E's the one who gets the world title match at, WrestleMania, whether it's against, Roman Reigns, who might be back at that point, or Randy Orton, or, pick somebody. Anything can happen between now and WrestleMania. We got several months there. But that would allow Big E to have his big crowning moment at WrestleMania, and we saw how magical that was when Kofi finally had it. And I'm not saying you're going to be able to recreate that, but damn, would it be close.
Andrew, can I ask you this? Why do you think it's taken so long for this moment to actually come?
That's like a very layered question. A very, very layered question. Like when you just look at the history of black performers just in wrestling in general, like it's like a very layered thing as far as when I'm not just saying we as I'm a wrestler, but I'm just saying we as black people. Like it seems like these opportunities in professional wrestling, you gotta fight and claw just a little bit harder and wait a little bit longer for that opportunity to come. Like as everybody in here has said, Big E has everything that it takes to be a world champion, and why that opportunity hasn't come sooner, I'm pretty sure we'll never get that answer. But I just feel like it's just, as I mentioned, it's just very, very layered, and I know we on a sort of a time thing right now, but I do want to make mention that we're very much seeing, just in strictly speaking professional wrestling, we are seeing an uprise over the past three or so years of just black talented performers that can be at that championship level, that can be leading a company. But it's all up to the powers that be to hand these opportunities out and to seek more through these performers, and not just for what you may think they are, and let them have that freedom. And I feel like Big E is just very insanely talented, man, and I feel like it's only up to the powers that be, and of course them letting him be who he is as an individual, and that's going to take him to, you know, those heights that we all know that he can be and lead, you know, WWE as far as the SmackDown brand goes.
And I think another issue is they've kind of been hamstrung by their own success, haven't they, the members of the New Day? And from a tag team perspective, probably over the last, goodness, how many years now has it been, the New Day and the Usos? I can't even think, better part of the decade maybe now, really. They've been the golden goose, haven't they? They've been the go-to guys, they're the top premier tag team. And so I think it's only really been the case that you kind of detract and pull away from that, really, to give any one of the three of the New Day a strong singles push. They were shelved in that sense to an extent when Kofi had his run, and obviously with Woods out of the picture and the New Day back down to 2, obviously concentrating again at the top of the SmackDown tag picture there. So I think maybe just timing, it's one of those things, among other possible reasons, where it's either fortune or misfortune when it comes to a competitor and an injury and that kind of thing. Kofi will be familiar with that with regards to the, I think it was the Elimination Chamber, wasn't it, like a couple of years ago, and Mustafa, who picked up his injury. I think almost the fact that the New Day have been so successful really has meant that WWE, to an extent, want to keep them on the top of the shelf, really, because I think they've made very clear that from a tag team point of view, they must be far and away the biggest merchandise sellers, or certainly have been. So I guess they kind of maybe didn't want to meddle with that too much, but I just don't think you can have delayed any longer, really. As we talked about at the start, it's by far and away his time now, and the man has to shine. So I think we're all ready for it.
Matty, I'll argue that they're not successful enough. I look at the New Day already as a collective unit, and they are one of the most successful factions, and that's the key word. They're not just a tag team; they're a faction. They're 3 people, and you look at any of these groups in history that are 3+ that have been extremely successful. You look at the Shield, you look at Evolution, you look at the Nation of Domination. All of these guys, DX, prime example. All of those groups, they found a way to have members of those groups be their own tag team and have tag team championships, but they also found time to mix in singles run championships. And not only have the members of the New Day, until WrestleMania 35 with Kofi Kingston, which, as we all know, was not the initial plan at all, until that Mustafa Ali injury and fate took over and intervened and Kofi Mania ran wild across the WWE universe, not only had no member of the New Day ever won a singles championship, I can't remember a time they ever challenged for a singles championship. Hell, they didn't even let Xavier Woods compete in the King of the Ring tournament, which is like that man's childhood dream. They just, for whatever reason with the New Day, and I don't have the answer or the reason to it, they never let these guys compete for singles championships, even though there's 3 of them. They just made them basically a 3-man tag team. And yes, they have dominated the tag team division, but they could have been using these guys to do so much more with those singles titles over the last few years. It's mind-boggling that they've just not done that. And Big E should be a 3 or 4-time Intercontinental Champion by now. The fact that Kofi Kingston, it took him between 2014, before the New Day even formed, to WrestleMania 35 to win a singles championship, let alone the WWE title, was a miscarriage of justice. And then there's Woods, who's incredibly underrated as a performer, and is the best one on the mic of all 3 of them, and might be the most entertaining and talented one of them all. It's just, man, it's surprising to me that it's taken this long to utilize any of these guys as singles competitors as they've been a group, and I'm looking forward to see what Big E can do now, because their hands kind of been forced into doing this.
There's been a suggestion made a few times that the New Day, maybe what has essentially let them down in terms of singles competition, is being too good, too reliable. Simply whatever they do, they excel at, and as such they become the jack of all trades and not really taken too seriously in each one. I really hope their time in that position is over. You mentioned there, for example, Rick, that you mentioned fate taking over. Kofi Mania running rampant through the WWE universe. I have to give credit to every single person who was trying desperately to make that happen. There was a huge wave of people trying to get behind this person who deserved this opportunity. And that, at the moment, seems to be where we're going for Big E as well. So I'm very excited to see this happen. I want to come to you, Matty, for this one. If the New Day still had its full complement of all three members, because at the moment Xavier Woods has a long-term injury and Kofi Kingston is unavailable for at least 6 weeks. If those three people were still together, would Big E still be getting this push, do you think?
I'm inclined to think that he might do, but that's only because in between Kofi's WrestleMania and his WWE title win and losing that title, and now the New Day have racked up how many extra sort of tag team title reigns? It must be 2 or 3 reigns, I would have thought, within that time. So I have to say that Kofi went and did his singles thing, and New Day came back, already re-established themselves at the top of the tag team scene, almost re-ticked that box if it needed re-ticking. I think it was kind of time for them, really, as you guys talked about earlier, just as some of the other major factions always have. They do their collective thing, which they do excel at, as again, I referred to the fact that, they're victims of their own success in that regard, but they'd already climbed back atop of that mountain a couple of times. It was going to be the case of surely individually one of them now is to shine. Kofi, has to say, is, I wouldn't say had his turn, so to speak, as if it can only happen once, but certainly he had a huge spotlight a couple of years ago. Big E is hugely popular, as is Xavier Woods. I just think that maybe, we probably would have got here a different way, but eventually the tiles would have definitely fallen in his favour, and we would have got here in a roundabout way, and I'm certainly glad we are, definitely.
I think the answer to that question, Tom, is no. I think if Kofi wasn't going to take time off, if Xavier was healthy, I still think that they would be utilizing them as, that tag team role that they do so well, and would use them, because even you look back, it seemed like at the end of Kofi Kingston's title run, it could not be more evident that they just really didn't care to bring up the fact that Kofi was the WWE champion again. Like, until Kofi said it on SmackDown last week, I don't remember the last time it was referenced that Kofi won the WWE championship in a storyline. Now, I know a lot of that, there were some storylines early on with maybe Kofi turning heel that were nixed when Xavier got injured. So maybe that would have been different. I know a lot of things did change when Woods got hurt. So, I'll just say I think they would keep them in that role that they're at right now. The only reason why I would say, yes, this Big E singles push might be happening, or maybe Kofi would be getting another shot at a top run in the singles push, is just because really they're kind of running out of options. You have Roman Reigns, who's gone. You don't know when he's coming back. Sami Zayn, who was your Intercontinental Champion, he decided to take time off. Who knows when he's coming back? So we're looking at Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt 3 at SummerSlam, presumably, and we all think, as far as I know, we all think that Bray Wyatt is going to win that championship. Well, now we're looking at, okay, cool, who's challenging him for that title? Because the next big guy on the roster is your current Intercontinental Champion in AJ Styles. So who's left to challenge The Fiend, or are we going to continue this roundabout with Braun Strowman afterwards? So the only reason why I would think, Big E might be getting the opportunity is because WWE is kind of running out of options for single stars to push, which is why I think is part of the reason E's getting this push now.
Yeah, for sure. And if New Day, if they were still, together on screen right now, I don't necessarily think that this would be the direction that they will be going in. I feel like they would continue to slot them in that, tag team division and probably just mix it up, with Woods and E, or, do Woods and Kofi, and, just continue to do the switcheroo as far as, making sure that they, by New Day's popularity, that they can, help gain traction to other tag teams in the division. If they're, I don't even like, I don't know, besides Cesaro and Shinsuke, I can't even think of another team that's currently like together right now on the SmackDown tag side. But just speaking civilly about this, I don't think that this would be a thing right now. Had Kofi not be stepping aside and Woods doesn't have his long-term injury. If they were, just to hypothetically, like, if they were all together, I'm going to piggyback off what Rick said. I feel like it would be a case of they kind of ran it into the mud as far as them just keep throwing them back into the tag scene, rehashing the same matches and rehashing the same feuds, and this would be something that would be fresh and something new. And I feel like Big E just he just has all the intangibles that it takes, and just I really hope that when as far as these 6 weeks go and hopefully beyond, that this doesn't just become a thing to where they just want a filler in between Strowman and Bray. Like I really hope that Big E's not just like some placeholder thing that they can just use to get to the next pay-per-view, or you just use this to fill some time and give Strowman and Wyatt a little bit of time to breathe, because I don't think that their last encounter wasn't well received as maybe they had hoped. And that's just what I took from social media, just from the people who what they said about the match. So hopefully this is a long-term thing for Big E.
Clearly you weren't following my social media then.
I think you raise a very good point there, particularly about, will this be, for example, a filler feud? Are they just looking for someone to fill that gap?
Mm-hmm.
Rick, start me off here. How would you book this?
Well, until Randy Orton showed up and asked to challenge Drew McIntyre on Monday, I would have said, okay, look, we're in the pandemic era. Woods is gone, Kofi's gone. Big E can really do whatever the hell he wants because they're all in they're all in the same place. There's no travel going on. I would have had Big E show up after Drew beat Dolph Ziggler and stare him down. And I would have had Big E going after the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. That's obviously not the direction that they're going. So right now I'm looking at it as we are going to get Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, do I really want Big E going up against The Fiend? Because once The Fiend gets his hands on that championship, I don't think it's going away until Roman Reigns comes back. But if Braun Strowman somehow wins, that's your clear avenue right there, because I think Braun Strowman and Big E could have a hell of a match between two dudes who are just going to beat the holy hell out of each other. So there's a lot kind of up in the air on this. Looking ahead, I think Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton are going to go for a while. I expect Orton to win at SummerSlam and those two to continue for a few months there. I expect Bray Wyatt to get his hands on that championship, in which case I'm not putting Big E anywhere near that. So I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, AJ Styles needs an opponent for SummerSlam. I have said this on Twitter before. I don't want to see Big E, going after something he's already had, which it's been 5 years since he's won the Intercontinental Championship, and he should have had several already. I think it would be great to be able to look forward. But I think right now, the way the title picture currently is, it's Big E and AJ Styles at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental Championship. I think that's the way to go.
I think, as is our want as well as wrestling fans, since that backstage segment between Kofi and Big E, imaginations have run wild, haven't they? We've made a lot of assumptions and probably leapt to a few too many conclusions in terms of maybe marrying up what we would like to see for Big E versus what we might actually get. I don't think a feud between AJ Styles and Big E would necessarily disappoint, but for me, it's just not the one I want. I would love to see Big E at the top of SmackDown Live. I think he can carry the show at a point where it really needs strong leadership at the top, and that's no criticism of Braun Strowman. I think obviously he picked up the championship at WrestleMania almost by default, really, and as such it's almost as if WWE haven't been quite sure how best to use him and what direction to put his title reign in. And for me, the best place to put that now is in the rearview mirror, allow him to go on destroying people and doing things. He's certainly not been doing that as WWE champion, has he? He's certainly not been booked in a strong fashion. So for me, it's Big E decisively becoming WWE champion and hopefully going on for a long reign with it as well. I mean, you look at the booking possibilities in terms of who we could go up against. You'd back Big E to perform against anyone, right? And I think certainly you look at the potential options in terms of maybe featuring on Raw, maybe featuring on SmackDown, and possibly over NXT. It's the blue brand that needs him most, and they need him at the top of the order.
Yeah, just as far as how I would put this together, like my biggest factor in all this, like is the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, because I feel like that's their ultimate destination. Like I really want to believe that they are going to go long term here with Big E, but like a part of me is just like, this is all leading to Bray Wyatt eventually getting the championship back. But just as far as how I would put this together within the 6 weeks, I wouldn't make it too complicated or try to, do too much with it. Like I as far as having Big E approach the situation, I feel like you can, mix in various things within that, within that middle portion. But just as far as kicking it off, you can do something simple as Braun Strowman out in the ring. He's cutting a promo about whatever, maybe addressing Bray Wyatt, and Big E just comes out and makes it known that, hey, I'm here. I'm by myself. I'm ready to challenge for the world championship. I should have had this a long time ago. It's that simple. And now I want a shot. And, you can build Big E over the couple of weeks, have him win a couple of singles matches, put him over some, I can't say big names because I don't know how many, big names there are available right now. That's, that's not either a champ. I would say AJ Styles, but he's the champion. You don't want to keep going the route of, being your champion. But, I mean, I feel like it should be something that simple just to kick it off. Have Big E come out and let him cut a passionate promo. Let him speak his mind and let him know that he feels that he should have been world champion.
Okay. I do want to ask my final question here, and I'll start with Andrew. Would it be better for Big E if the New Day were to break up?
I'm gonna disagree with that big time.
He went there.
No, because I do see, there are a lot of people that do believe that, if Big E or, even when Kofi was WWE champion, I remember there were a number of people who were just like, maybe Kofi should split apart, maybe he should stop, throwing the pancakes and stuff like, which I truly never understood because he was doing that, on the chase. So, why would he stop doing it now because he's WWE champion? But I feel like breaking up the New Day would just kind of defeat the camaraderie and like just everything that they have established together as a group. Like they've said this in interviews, like countless interviews, that it's all an all for one type thing. Like whenever one person is pushed to the forefront, those other two stand behind that one man and they all push him forward. And I feel like that's just a big key thing to the New Day. So you stripping that away from them and kind of like singling out Big E and like him not having his comrades not right beside him, or not necessarily right beside him in this sense, but like with him for this journey, whether it be through social media or just any type of moral support. I feel like that's just taken away from New Day as a whole, and it will take away from from Big E. But could Big E work as a heel? Like I don't think anybody would disagree that he that would be something that he couldn't do. I definitely think he could do it. He could pull it off. But I just feel like Big E as a as a baby face and him, having New Day right behind him, in spirit or whatever it may be. Like I feel like that would be something that's just better overall for the story.
Yeah, I think it from my point of view quite decisive. Really, I'd echo those. I don't think the New Day, in terms of a collective effort, should ever part. Really, you referred to the fact that they've spoken in interviews, Andrew, and I think they've been equally as forceful in their view that they're never splitting. The New Day won't ever break in that kind of one turns heel on the other kind of way that we saw with the Shield. And for me, that's what I want. I want my New Day to be together. I don't know in recent memory a better faction, a better tag team, a better unit that's been better connected than the New Day. I think they work as a trio better than any I can recall. And as you say, Andrew, they champion each other's cause beautifully, don't they? We saw that with Kofi's title win. I said earlier that the best part about that was you saw the bromance, if you like, the real love that the three of them share. That was evident, and that wasn't just for on screen, that wasn't just for storyline purposes, that was real. We'll see exactly the same when Big E does get to whatever, the top of whatever mountain he's about to climb. I'm sure we'll see the same. And whether it happens in months or years, I'm sure we'll see Xavier Woods get some time in the limelight as well, because as you say, he's one hell of a talker and one heck of a performer. So I'm sure before the final chapter in the story of the New Day is written, we will see each of them individually get that that moment in the sun, but collectively that should never come to an end.
Well, thank you for that, Matty, because you just reminded me of the emotion behind Woods, unveiling that championship, and I got a tear in my eye again, because that moment of him ripping that Planet's champion belt off and unveiling the WWE championship, just thinking about it still gives me chills. So thank you for that. But I'll say this much: I used to be, and don't virtually hit me here, Andrew. I used to be on the break up the New Day bandwagon. I used to be. I thought it would be a great story to tell after Kofi won the WWE Championship and him kind of go off and have that single success for that jealousy as it happens in life, you're happy for a friend if they get that promotion, but it's like, what the hell? Why isn't this kind of stuff happening for me? Jealousy happens in everyday life, and I thought that would be a very real story to tell in WWE, and maybe you could turn E or Woods heel on Kofi, and maybe that could have been a big match between those guys at SummerSlam over the WWE Championship. I still think it would be a better end to Kofi's run than what we actually got.
That's a fact.
But over time, I have turned, and I am on that bandwagon of, you must keep these guys together at all costs, because if you keep a team for so long together, and you get, and not that I'm saying that I'm bored with the New Day, but you get bored with them, and it's like it gets stale, and you got to freshen it up. You got to do something different. And what do? You split them up. We've seen it with Edge and Christian. We've seen it with the Hardys. We've seen it with DX. We've seen it with Evolution. We've seen it with the Shield. We've seen it with every single team and faction in the history of the WWE. It's time to keep one together. And as we've seen with Kofi Kingston's run with the WWE Championship, and hopefully as we'll see one day when Big E wins a world title and when Xavier Woods wins a world title, because I think they both should. And when Xavier Woods finally wins the King of the Ring, because damn it, he should. I think, yeah, it would be great to actually just see these lifelong friends stay together in a group, always have each other's back, and yeah, show that they're having a support team is really, really important. And yeah, no, don't split these guys up, because honestly, it's not needed. We saw that with Kofi Kingston's WWE title run. It's not needed to break these guys up.
And just I just wanted to add this in here real quick. Like I think I know one of you guys said it earlier in the show, but I believe the last time that somebody outside of one of the members of New Day outside of Kofi challenged for a single title, I think it was Xavier Woods. I think it was back in early 2018 when they were doing when the U.S. title was vacant and they were doing that tournament. I think he made it to like the semifinals and lost to Jinder Mahal. I think that was the last time that one of the New Day members, up until Kofi Mania came about, that they got the challenge for a singles title.
And that technically wasn't even a championship match, because he didn't make it to the finals.
Yeah, right.
One of my favorite things about the New Day is that they seem to have redefined the whole concept of a team. You've mentioned there, Rick, everyone breaks up, not the New Day, and it's actually spreading. The bromance mentioned, the brotherhood, all that they have goes beyond them. You look at Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze and what they've built with Up, Down, Down. You look at the Usos in the build to Kofi Mania forfeiting a tag team, a gauntlet match?
Yeah.
Oh, what a moment that was.
An incredible moment. You look at the inspiration that these three men have offered to everyone around them. When Xavier Woods brought the three together, they were all equal partners. They were all able to do different things, and they have all delivered. Now, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to hear more from our panel, you can check out Andrew Thompson's YouTube channel, where he recently interviewed Stu Bennett and Savannah Evans. You can read Matty Paddock's interviews with Drake Maverick and MVP at the Daily Star. And you can catch Rick Ucchino on ESPN 1530 Cincinnati and sportskeeda.com. I've been your host, Tom Collihue, and thank you all very much for joining us today.